might use it. I may come back to that later on. I'm just going to go through those questions first of all, and I may return to that. So, Councillor Whitehead, first of all, being followed by Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to come back to Dr. Warren's comments about the height of the building and just check my understanding is correct here about the old Kent Road area action plan. So I've just brought up the draft December 2020 version and looking at the very specific and detailed building heights guidance on Ossory Road, and for anyone who has it open, it's quite a big document to download. It's page 72 of the PDF. But in there it says, in Ossory Road, buildings should be no more than 10 to 11 stories north of the service road for the Glengall Business Centre, dropping to 8 to 9 stories to the south to avoid overshadowing of residents at Glengall Road and Old Kent Road. I just wanted to check, are we talking about the north of the service road or the south here? I'm not that familiar with the geography.
This is to the north of the service road. So the service road is the service road for the Glengall Industrial Estate. So that's a private road rather than part of the highway. So we are in discussions, or have been in discussions, with the site to the south, where we have asked for that height to drop further as you go further south on the site. So that plan is being implemented as we set out in the 2020 version that went online, I think, today.
Okay, so the site itself that's being proposed is between 10 and 11 stories, yeah, and that aligns with the policy. Fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Chair. No, I just wanted to explore with officers regarding the conservation area and the points that Dr. Warren raised. And clearly, as people have set out, that the height of this seems to have been determined through the Old Kent Road Area Action Plan, but just really wanted to understand the issues that Dr. Warren raised in terms of the views, which, as I understood his presentation, were from the tops of the stairs to the front doors to the properties on Glengall Road, what the materiality of that viewpoint might be within the conservation area.
Okay, perhaps I can back on into that one. We would usually, in assessing an impact on a conservation area, be looking at impacts from the public parts of conservation areas, because their value is part of that cherished public character. Of course, we do consider views from elsewhere, such as rear gardens from within the properties, but then mostly for other reasons, for reasons about daylight, sunlight, and overshadowing. The conservation area assessment is therefore primarily one about those public views, which is what the applicants modelled, and it's also what we were considering in arriving at our conclusion that whilst there is, and we do acknowledge there is some harm to the conservation area, we're not saying there isn't any, but we think that the public benefits of this scheme outweigh that, and we think that we've negotiated the applicants into a position where they are compliant with the plan, and the plan was designed to strike that balance where we could still deliver housing, but would minimise as much as we could, mitigate the impact of developments on the conservation area. I think another thing to add is that we extended the conservation area, as Troy pointed out in his presentation, to include the old bottling factory. There was a proposal about a year and a half ago to demolish that building and to redevelop it with an 8-storey building on it. One of the things that we wanted to maintain was that transition between the old established character of Glengall Road and the higher density of the master plans, and that was one of the main drivers for extending the conservation area to include the bottling factory behind this scheme, because it does maintain a lower height and a distance between the listed buildings and this site and its neighbouring sites.
Thank you. And just one final question on the conservation area point. all the drawings that we've seen, or the viewpoints that we've seen, other than obviously the very early diagram, which kind of showed the line of sight, which included Malt Street, have shown the Ossory Road building in isolation without considering the new buildings which are to be built to the east of it, particularly the Malt Street development. And whilst we kind of seen that one diagram of the sort of cut through elevation of how things will look, are you as officers confident that, because obviously the buildings on Malt Street are fairly tall and thin rather than very wide, that that the impact of that doesn't create any sort of unforeseen issues in terms of viewpoints? Or to what extent do the fact that there's taller buildings behind the Ossory Road mitigate its impact on the conservation area? Might be a better way of phrasing that question.
It is true that given the scale of development on Malt Street and at Cantium, that within views of the conservation area and within some views from the conservation area, you will see some of those taller buildings, and that was something that was assessed very thoroughly when those schemes came forward to committee over the last couple of years. The impact on the Glengall Road conservation area of those taller buildings tends to be more pronounced to the southern end of Glengall Road when you're looking towards the Glengall Road buildings from the park, and they were the views that committee considered. Within the north part of Glengall Road, and as you're walking south along it, you will get glimpses of the taller buildings, but they're not as apparent as they are in the views from the west, looking back into the depth of along the alignment of the old canal, in effect, because those tall buildings all line up on the alignments of the old canal.
Thank you. That's helpful, I think. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed. I think I'm now minded to move forward to final comments, but I'm also just conscious that if there are any outstanding questions, that we deal with them before I go to a motion, of course. And I just want to be absolutely certain as regards the affordable space that is designed for this particular application, and how affordable is affordable. And maybe just for the record here, if officers could explain how we would determine what affordable space will be available, and what is the benchmark to determine its affordability?
Yes, I can come back onto that for you. So the social rented housing, the benchmark is set nationally. So that benchmark usually is somewhere about 40% of market rental. The requirements in Southwark go beyond most London boroughs, because we also insist that the service charges are included within that. So in most boroughs you would have the 40% discount, but you would have a service charge on top of that. We also require the service charge to be capped within that. So in that sense, it's very affordable. That's the social rent element at 25%. And then the intermediate elements, if you look at the New Southwark Plan draft, which is going to its examination in public in February, we set out household incomes which are required to meet for 1, 2 and 3 bedroom flats. And those household incomes, again, are lower than the, say, the London Plan household incomes for intermediates. So the ask in Southwark is generally a much higher ask and a greater discount to developers to provide that affordable housing. So it does cost developers more to meet our policy requirements.
Thank you. Thank you. It's just important, just for the record here. Councillor Livingston, I see your digital hand still up. I'm assuming that's an old hand.
That's a legacy hand.
A legacy. I said old hand, but there you are. Legacy will do.
I am an old hand, Chair.
I'm not going to call you that, but anyway, there you are. In that case, if colleagues are satisfied and you've asked questions and And if there are further comments, if you want to make further comments at this point, I'm minded to move to a motion, if you agreed. Agreed? I'll move to a motion in that case. And so I'd like to move that we adopt the officer's recommendation as set out in paragraph 1 of the report and page 146 of the agenda pack. That planning permission is granted subject to conditions and referred to the Mayor of London and the applicant entering into an appropriate legal agreement no later than June the 1st, 2021. That the environmental information be taken into account as required by Regulation 30 of the Town and Country Planning Environmental Impact Assessment Regulation 2017. That following issue of the decision to be confirmed that the Director of Planning shall place a statement on the statutory register pursuant to Regulation 30 of the Town and Planning Environmental Impact Assessment Regulation, that for the purpose of Regulations 30 (1) D, the main reason and consideration on which the local planning authority decision is based shall be set out as in this report. In the event that the requirement of A are not met by the 1st of June 2021, that the Director of Planning be authorised to refuse planning permission, if appropriate, for the reasons set out in paragraph 238 of the report. Does any member wish to second this motion?
Sorry, Chair, before you ask for a seconder, just for clarity, the addendum report amends and adds some extra conditions. I just wanted that to be noted.
Indeed, and I'll just say that the addendum report adds additional conditions. So that forms part of my motion. Is there a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Whittam. I'll now go through the usual tally, and I'll start with the Vice Chair. Councillor Miro, can you confirm that you are for, against, or abstain the motion?
I can confirm I'm for, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Livingstone, can you confirm you're for, against, or abstain the motion?
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, as I am the ward councillor, I want to say, I think the points that we discussed about the conservation area, I thought were interesting, but I think really the parameters of this were set by the Old Kent Road Area Action Plan. So I think it'd be very difficult to sustain an objection on that basis. I do note that the developer has made a number of changes in responses to both planners and to local community and the ward councillors on their design. So overall, I would be supportive of the proposal, Chair.
You are for the application?
I am.
Thank you very much. I'll encourage others to respond to my question directly now. Councillor O'Brien, are you for, against, or abstain the motion?
Without a speech this time, I'm for it, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Soames, are you for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Whitehead, are you for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Whittam, are you for, against, or abstain the motion?
I'm for, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Williams, are you for, against, or abstain the motion?
For, Chair.
Thank you. And I'm Councillor Martin Seaton, and I vote for the motion. The motion carried unanimously. Thank you all for your contributions, and all those who've made written submissions. Thank you all. This is to ensure that this application has been thoroughly reviewed by members and has now been agreed unanimously. I want to thank you all and have a